John Mercer lived on the edge of a wide desert plain, where the sky stretched so far that it felt like it had no end. Every morning he woke early, fed his animals, and walked the quiet land around his small wooden cabin. John was a calm man who liked his peaceful life. He did not talk much, but he cared deeply about people and about doing what was right. One warm afternoon, after a short summer storm, John rode out along the dry creek bed to check if any water had collected for his animals. The storm had passed quickly, leaving the ground soft and the air fresh. As he rode, he noticed something unusual near a group of fallen branches. At first he thought it was a small deer, but when he moved closer, he realized it was a young Apache girl, very weak and lying on her side. She looked tired, frightened, and unable to move on her own. John carefully got down from his horse. He spoke in a soft voice so she would not feel afraid. She did not answer, but he could see from her eyes that she understood he meant no harm. She had a few scratches from the bushes and looked exhausted, as if she had not eaten or had water for a long time. John knew that if he left her there, she might not have the strength to stand again soon. He also knew that helping someone from the Apache community could bring misunderstanding, but he never let fear stop him from doing what he believed was the right thing. Slowly and gently, he lifted the girl onto his horse and brought her back to his small cabin. He gave her fresh water first, then a soft blanket, and then some simple food. She ate very little at first, but her eyes showed relief. John stayed nearby but gave her space. He understood that she needed time to feel safe again. The next morning, she woke up more aware of her surroundings. John introduced himself with a smile, and after a long pause, she quietly shared her name, Nalin. Her voice was soft and careful, as if she was unsure whether she should trust him yet. John nodded and did not ask her many questions. He knew trust was something that grew slowly. He simply wanted her to rest and feel better. Over the next few days, Nalin regained some of her strength. She watched everything John did, how he cooked simple meals, how he cared for his animals, and how he fixed things around his cabin. She seemed curious but still kept a quiet distance. Sometimes, when John stepped outside, she would follow silently and sit near the doorway, watching the horizon as if expecting someone to appear. John noticed that she seemed troubled, but he never pushed her to speak. If she wanted to share her story, he would listen. If she didn't, he would still help her. Every evening he made a small fire outside and cooked warm food. He always prepared a portion for her, and even though she ate quietly, he could see her slowly becoming more comfortable. One afternoon, John went into town to buy supplies. The town was small, with only a few wooden buildings and a handful of people. News traveled quickly in a place like that. When the shopkeeper saw John, he leaned forward and spoke in a low voice. He told John that travelers had reported seeing Apache search parties moving across the plains. Some settlers believed they were searching for someone. Others feared it could lead to trouble, because misunderstandings between communities often caused worry. John listened but said very little. He knew the world around him was shaped by fear, but he also believed that peace was possible when people showed kindness. Still, the shopkeeper warned him to be careful. John understood the concern but kept his thoughts to himself. When he returned home, he noticed Nalin sitting outside the cabin, looking toward the distant hills. She looked calmer but still unsure. John offered her some food, and she accepted it with a small nod. He could tell she was thinking deeply about something, but again, he did not press her. As days passed, Nalin grew stronger. She began helping with small tasks, bringing water, picking vegetables from the small garden, and brushing the horse gently. John appreciated her help, but more than anything, he was glad to see her gaining confidence. Sometimes she would show a small smile when he taught her something new. It was a simple, quiet life, but it felt peaceful. Even so, John could feel a quiet tension building in the air. He hoped that Nalin's family was safe somewhere. He hoped they would understand that he was not holding her against her will. He feared that someone might think he had done something wrong, but he also trusted that truth had a way of revealing itself, even in difficult times. One early morning, before the sun had fully risen, John stepped outside and noticed that Nallen's blanket was empty. She had left quietly without waking him. Her footprints led a short distance away before disappearing into the open land. John stood for a moment, feeling a mix of emotions. He was relieved that she felt strong enough to return home. Yet he felt a small heaviness in his heart, the kind that comes when a bond forms and then suddenly ends. But John also felt something else, something warm. He believed that Nallen had left because she trusted him. She no longer needed his protection. In her own quiet way, she had shown him gratitude through her smiles, her help, and her gentle presence. John gathered the blanket, folded it, and placed it inside the cabin. The cabin felt a little quieter without her, but he accepted it. Her journey was hers to continue. In the following days, John returned to his usual routines. He worked on the fence, watered the garden, and rode across the plains to check on the far corners of his land. Sometimes he looked toward the hills, wondering if Nallen had reached her family safely. He hoped she would remember the cabin as a place of kindness, not fear. Occasionally, he heard distant activity across the plains, perhaps riders passing far away, too distant to see but close enough to sense. He wondered if they were searching for her or if they had already found her and taken her home. He hoped that if they heard her story, they would understand that he had only tried to help. As the days stretched on, John began to feel the quiet calm of his usual life again. But something inside him had changed. Helping Nallen had reminded him that small acts of kindness mattered, even in a world filled with mistrust. He had offered care without expecting anything in return, and that gave him a sense of inner peace that he carried with him during his daily work. He also could not shake the feeling that the story was not yet finished. Something about the way Nallen had quietly watched the horizon made John think. She had left with a purpose. Maybe she had gone to tell her family about him. Maybe she had gone to reassure them. Or maybe she simply needed to find her way back home on her own terms. Whatever the reason, John respected her choice. He believed she would do what she felt was right, and he hoped that, someday, she might find her way back, not because she needed help, but because she wished to share the peace they had found together during her stay. For now, the cabin stood quiet under the wide sky, holding the memories of the days they had shared, gentle days filled with simple tasks, soft conversations, and a growing trust between two people from different worlds. John carried those memories with him, unsure of what the future would bring, but ready to meet it with the same calm strength he had always known. John's days returned to their quiet rhythm after Nallen left. He worked on the ranch, cared for his animals, and cooked simple meals in the evening. But even as he went through these routines, a part of him felt different from before. The small cabin felt emptier, and the silence felt deeper. He had grown used to Nallen's quiet presence, the soft footsteps, and the way she watched the sky with thoughtful eyes. Now, every sound seemed louder because of the stillness she left behind. John tried not to worry, but he often wondered what she had told her family. He wondered whether they believed she had been treated well. He hoped her people would understand that he had only wanted to help. He also hoped she felt safe back among those who loved her. When he looked across the open land, he sometimes imagined he might see a small figure walking back toward his home. Perhaps to say thank you or simply to show she was all right. Weeks passed. Summer softened into gentle afternoons, and the wind carried a warm smell of dust and dry grass. John fixed his tools, mended old boards on the shed, and cleaned the cabin until it looked freshly lived in. He told himself everything was back to normal, but he knew something in his heart was still unsettled. One late afternoon, as the sun drifted low and the sky slowly turned golden, John noticed something on the far horizon. At first he thought it was dust rising from the wind, but soon he realized it was a small group of riders moving steadily toward his cabin. Their shapes became clearer with each minute. The horses moved in a calm but purposeful line, and the figures on their backs sat tall. Watching the land ahead of them, John felt his chest tighten, not out of fear, but out of uncertainty. He did not know who they were, but a quiet feeling inside him suggested this moment was connected to Nallen. He wiped his hands on his trousers and stood still outside the cabin. He waited without moving, the way a person waits for something important. something they cannot avoid or hurry. The riders continued toward him at a steady pace, and as they came closer, John could make out the colors and patterns of their clothing. They were from Nalan's community. Then he saw her. She rode on a horse between two adults, seated straight and calm, her hair tied neatly behind her shoulders. She looked stronger than when she had left his home. Her eyes were focused, and even from a distance, he could see the quiet confidence in her face. The riders slowed as they approached John's cabin. They came to a gentle stop a short distance away. The horses breathed softly in the warm afternoon air. For a moment, no one spoke. The scene felt like the air held its breath, waiting for the first word. John took a step forward, not wanting to seem uncertain. He greeted them politely, speaking in a calm voice. Nalan slowly got down from her horse and walked toward him. She was still quiet, but her eyes held reassurance, as if she had something important to share and wanted him to know it would be all right. When she reached him, she gave a small, respectful nod. John returned the gesture. For several moments, neither said anything. Then, in simple but sincere English, Nalan told him that the riders with her were members of her family, men who cared deeply for her and had spent days worried after she had gone missing. She explained that when she returned home, her family had been filled with emotion, some relieved, some confused, some wanting to understand everything that had happened. Because she had returned without speaking for a long time, her family had imagined many things. They wondered where she had been, whether someone had been unkind to her, or whether she had been taken against her will. Nalan told them none of those things were true. She told them how John had found her, how he had cared for her quietly, and how he had asked nothing in return. But her family needed more than words. They needed to see the place with their own eyes. So Nalan convinced them to come with her, not to cause trouble or blame anyone, but simply to understand. She wanted them to meet the man who had helped her. She believed it was important that they see the kindness she had been shown. John listened carefully. The adults with her remained silent for now, watching him with thoughtful expressions. Not unfriendly, but serious. It made sense. They were parents, uncles, protectors. They wanted to be sure of the truth. John respected that. Nalan continued speaking. She told John that she had left his cabin early in the morning because she was afraid that, if her family found her there too quickly, they might misunderstand the situation before she could explain it. She didn't want anyone to approach his cabin in worry or suspicion. She wanted to go home, speak clearly, and then return only when everyone was calm and ready to listen. She had waited until she could bring her family in peace. John felt something ease inside him, like a tight knot slowly loosening. He looked at her with gentle appreciation, grateful for her honesty, grateful that she had trusted him enough to return. Finally, one of the adults stepped forward. He was older, with kind but serious eyes. He greeted John in a calm voice and spoke of their concern for Nalan. He said that their community cared deeply about their children and that they had been frightened when she disappeared. But after hearing her story and seeing her safe, they wanted to come and understand the full truth for themselves. He thanked John for his help and expressed appreciation for the care he had shown. John felt a warm sense of relief. He assured them that he had only done what any caring person should do. He told them Nalan had been brave, respectful, and thoughtful during her time with him. The adults listened closely, paying attention to every word. After a moment, the older man reached into a small bag and took out a simple wooden carving. It was smooth and carefully made, shaped like a small protective symbol from their community. He offered it to John as a sign of gratitude and respect. John accepted it with quiet humility. The carving felt warm in his hands, not because of temperature, but because of the meaning behind it. Nalan smiled, then a small, gentle smile, but one full of sincerity. She walked around the cabin once, showing her family the garden she had helped with, the spot where she used to sit and watch the sky, and the places where John kept his tools. Her family observed everything with a quiet understanding, seeing for themselves the safe environment she had described for the first time. John felt the tension around him soften completely. The visitors were no longer cautious. They seemed calm, open, and even grateful. Before leaving, Nalin stepped closer to John. In soft words, she told him that she had wanted to thank him from the very beginning, but had not known how. She had felt shy, overwhelmed, and unsure if words were enough. She hoped to return with her family would show how much she appreciated his kindness. John nodded gently and told her that her presence and trust had already been enough. The riders prepared to leave. The horses moved calmly, and the afternoon sunlight made long, peaceful shadows across the ground. Before they turned away, the older man offered one more respectful nod toward John, a gesture filled with quiet appreciation. As they rode back across the open land, Nalin looked back once and lifted her hand in a small wave. John waved back, feeling a warmth he hadn't felt in many years. When they disappeared into the horizon, the cabin felt peaceful again, not empty this time, but full of meaning. John held the carved symbol in his hand and looked out at the wide sky. He realized the world was bigger and kinder than it sometimes seemed. Small choices, small acts of care, had brought two very different lives together and created understanding. Where there might once have been fear, John walked back into his cabin with a lighter heart. He knew he might never see Nalin again, but he also knew that their brief connection had changed something deep inside him. He had offered kindness, and kindness had come back to him in a way he never expected. And in the quiet evening light, as he sat at his small wooden table, John felt at peace with the world, grateful for the past, content in the present, and hopeful for the future.